Olá, bem-vindos ao Road to GLEX.
Exploration is probably more important today than ever. There's still so much more for us to figure out.
See the Earth from a totally different perspective, and it changes you.
No matter what fear you have, no matter how uncomfortable you are, you can make the decision to take that situation, turn it around, and even feel more alive than you ever have before.
We haven't seen or experienced everything that there is.
Nothing is impossible.
I can't believe it.
We need a dream, we need to be creative, and we all need to have an adventure in order to create miracles in the darkest of times. And whether it's about climate change, or eradicating poverty, or giving back to future generations what we've taken for granted, it's about adventure.
There's still so much more for us to figure out.
It changes you.
Estamos a meio do nosso caminho até ao GLEX Summit 2021, que traz a Portugal os maiores e mais reputados exploradores do nosso planeta e da exploração espacial. Eles que em julho nos darão conta das últimas expedições e descobertas científicas. Até lá, continuamos a percorrer o nosso país através do Circuito de Ciência Viva, em busca de achados igualmente extraordinários. E rumamos a sul, até ao Centro de Ciência Viva de Lagos, que nos permite conhecer a biodiversidade da região. Não só as poças de maré, como as pegadas de dinossauros, por aqui passaram há 120 milhões de anos. Siga connosco.
Sejam bem-vindos ao Centro de Ciência Viva de Lagos. O Centro de Ciência Viva de Lagos faz parte da Rede Nacional de Centros de Ciência Viva, que são museus interativos de ciência. Nós, aqui em Lagos, o que pretendemos é que os nossos visitantes comecem um bocadinho pela história, já que a nossa exposição aborda os descobrimentos, mas não só. Aborda os descobrimentos como ponto de ligação para as várias formas de comunicação. Todo o nosso centro é constituído por módulos interativos em que os nossos visitantes fazem perguntas, tocam, mexem com vista a descobrirem e experimentarem fenómenos. Temos um jardim exterior de cerca de 2.000 metros quadrados. As famílias podem visitar-nos e realizar workshops que vão desde a robótica, à impressão 3D, a exploração do próprio jardim, mas temos um outro conjunto de grandes atividades. Somos a única escola Ciência Viva no Algarve, temos um espaço maker com impressão 3D, com experimentação com as técnicas maker, mas também valorizamos e trabalhamos ao nível da investigação com o património natural do Algarve, seja na biodiversidade, seja na geodiversidade. Temos projetos de investigação aprovados com vista a estudar e valorizar esse mesmo património natural, com o objetivo de o proporcionar e o divulgar para o público em geral. Já que estamos numa área de intenso turismo, convém diversificar e valorizar o património natural como um produto turístico. Olá, o meu nome é Luís Rodrigues e sou paleontólogo de dinossauros. Como é que eu decidi ser paleontólogo de dinossauros? Eu não sei bem. Normalmente as crianças começam por querer ser paleontólogos logo em tenra idade. Eu já fui mais tarde, quando estava a estudar na universidade. Mas lembro-me que talvez tenha sido porque sempre gostei de animais e outro gosto aparentemente paradoxal era o gosto pela história. O percurso que estive a fazer para estudar, para aprender, grande parte do meu trabalho foi feito, por um lado, no campo, em sítios muito distantes e apelativos, como por exemplo na Patagónia Argentina, mas sobretudo a estudar as coleções que estão nos museus de História Natural. Eu trabalhei em cerca de 18 museus de História Natural, desde a América do Sul, a Europa e também na China. Eu dediquei o meu trabalho de investigação sobretudo à evolução dos dinossauros saurópodes, aqueles dinossauros grandes de cauda e pescoço comprido. Sempre tive o gosto pela escrita e pela divulgação de ciência. Sempre gostei de escrever artigos para os jornais, para divulgar aquilo que ia aprendendo para o público em geral, e provavelmente terá sido isso que cheguei até ao Centro de Ciência Viva de Lagos, onde nós pretendemos, com as nossas atividades, tornar o conhecimento e a ciência e a tecnologia acessível a todos. As pessoas, as famílias, as crianças só podem preservar e proteger aquilo que conhecem. E essa é uma missão dos Centros de Ciência Viva, dar a divulgar, dar a conhecer, para que todos possamos preservar.
Do Centro de Ciência Viva de Lagos, ligamos a Nova Iorque para continuar a conversar sobre dinossauros com o convidado que Ken Passer do The Explorers Club nos traz esta semana. Hi, Ken. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Katerina. It's a pleasure to be back again with you.
Thank you so much. And we almost starting a new GLEX edition in Portugal. What's the feeling?
The feeling is excitement, and we just can't wait to be back on the road again and on our way to Portugal. Everyone's raring to go.
Can you introduce us our guest today?
I would love to. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Ken Lacovara, the 2019 Explorers Club Medal recipient. Ken is a paleontologist known for his discoveries of massive dinosaurs in remote corners of the world. In southern Patagonia, he famously unearthed the titanic dinosaur Dreadnoughtus, one of the largest dinosaurs ever discovered. I think you're going to find it fascinating. Please meet Ken.
Welcome, Ken. Good to have you here.
Good to be with you, Katerina. Thank you.
You wrote the book, Why Dinosaurs Matter. Why do they matter?
Well, dinosaurs matter because the future matters. And the only way we're ever going to get the information that we need to help guide us into the future is by looking at the past, right? No one has access to the future. No one remembers the future. The present is nothing, right? The sentence I am speaking now is already in your past. So if we really want to understand this perilous environmental future that we're sailing into, we have to look to the past. And it was Winston Churchill who said, the further back you look, the further ahead you will see. And so if we really want to understand how our planet will respond to these mega changes that we are precipitating with the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis, well, there are answers in the deep time record of the Earth. And so, I wrote the book about dinosaurs. It really could have been about any ancient creature, but dinosaurs are kind of the hook because people are interested in them. But the past matters because the future matters.
And we can have a glimpse of it in the new theme park that you are working on in New Jersey.
Yeah, that's right. I think most people probably don't realize that New Jersey, which is a small state in the United States, just a little bit south of New York, is really the cradle of dinosaur paleontology. The world's first complete dinosaur skeleton was found in New Jersey. The world's first tyrannosaur was found in New Jersey. And for the last 15 years, I've been working at a site in New Jersey that actually preserves the last moments of the dinosaurs, 66 million years ago. And so you can see creatures that were actually killed in the world's fifth mass extinction when the dinosaurs and 65% of species went extinct, along with the fallout from the asteroid impact that happened 1,700 miles away in Mexico. That stuff flew through the atmosphere, landed all over the planet, including in this bone bed. And so we have a unique site on the planet that gives us a window into this pivotal moment in Earth history. But what I really like about this site is above that layer, which naturally we manage and curate very carefully, above that layer, we have another layer that's still full of fossils, and we can let the public come in and collect in that layer. So every kid, every parent who comes in, who's not afraid to get their hands dirty and who tries, finds a 65-million-year-old fossil with their own hands that they get to take home. And that just becomes a treasure for them. That little shark tooth or clam or whatever they find, that's more important to that kid than all the T-Rexes and all the museums of the world. And that is their avenue into exploration, into discovery. That's how they start to see themselves when they make that connection between themselves and the Earth's deep past. And then that can go anywhere. I call dinosaurs the gateway drug to the sciences. And so you get a kid hooked on science through dinosaurs, through fossils. What you're really doing is inculcating them with the scientific method, which is a way to process information. It gives them a way to receive and process information rationally about our world. And that then can lead them to go on to a career as an astrophysicist or a deep sea explorer or an astronaut or an engineer, or maybe just to build a great sustainable business using that same way of thinking.
Of course. In your work, how do you blend exploration with 3D techniques?
Well, we're at an interesting point now in paleontology, and one of the things that I love about my field is that when I'm out in these remote places like Patagonia or the Sahara Desert or the Gobi Desert, my life is pretty much the same as my predecessors' lives were 150 years ago when they're doing field work. I'm living in a tent, I'm getting my water from the stream, I'm working with hammers and chisels and burlap and plaster, so that part hasn't changed. But now in the laboratory, it's all different. And so we routinely now capture the 3D scans of the bones that we collect. Some of the bones, like the femur of the big dinosaur that I found in Patagonia, Dreadnoughtus, weighs as much as a small car. So we can manipulate these bones in a 3D workspace then and test our biomechanical models. We don't even have to prepare some fossils. We don't have to take the rock off. We can CT scan them and see what's inside without disturbing very delicate fossils. And now in my lab and in several others, we're taking little bits of dinosaur bone, demineralizing that bone with acids, and routinely now we collect ancient blood vessels, ancient blood cells, proteins, and other biomolecules from dinosaurs and other ancient creatures. This gives us some hereditary information and other biological information. So we're at the point now where we're starting to study these ancient, long-gone creatures in a similar way to how a biologist today would study whales or penguins or anything that's alive today. We're able to do paleobiology now on these ancient creatures.
Which one was your greatest achievement?
Well, my favorite, I guess, is this dinosaur that's really become sort of a member of our family, and that is one that I named Dreadnoughtus. It's a dinosaur that I discovered in southernmost Patagonia, down near Tierra del Fuego. And Dreadnoughtus, I gave it that name. Dreadnought means fears nothing. And I gave it the name because Dreadnoughtus in life was 65 tons. That's the mass of 13 African elephants. That's 9 times the mass of a T-Rex. That's about 10 tons heavier than a Boeing 737. So if you're 9 times the weight of the biggest, nastiest predator that's ever lived on land, what have you to fear, right? Dread not. And I spent about a total of a year living in my tent next to Dreadnoughtus, spread out over 5 field seasons during the austral summer. A very remote location. The first field season, we could only get to the site by rafting down a glacial stream. And then we had to take our plaster-jacketed bones out by horses. I hired a couple of gauchos, South American cowboys, and their horses, and we drug the bones out of the desert that way. Once I got the 16 tons of bones to my laboratory in the United States, it took us 5 years with over 100 people working on the project to carefully open those jackets, to uncover the rock, and to preserve and study those bones. So just a massive project. And it resulted in this titanic animal that we call Dreadnoughtus, which is 26 meters long, 2.5 stories at the shoulder, 65 tons. And that skeleton happens to be the most complete of the massive dinosaurs that have ever been found. And it's also the largest dinosaur for which we can calculate a mass, because we have both the humerus and the femur. You need both those bones to determine the weight. There are other really, really big dinosaurs that are in that same size range, but they're fragmentary skeletons, so we can't understand them as completely as we do Dreadnoughtus.
And why are kids and even adults so fascinated with dinosaurs?
Well, they're amazing in so many ways. But I think for kids, it's this one particular thing. And I say this because every parent says the same thing to me. They'll say, my daughter, my son, they know everything there is to know about dinosaurs. They know all these names. They know all these facts. I don't know how they know them. I don't know how they keep all this straight in their heads. And I think for these kids, when they know something their parents don't know, when they know something their teacher or maybe their doctor doesn't know, what does that feel like? That feels like expertise. That feels like authority, right? And that's, for a lot of kids, I think their first taste of that. And, to be honest, right, that feels good. It feels good when you know something that other people don't. And then, of course, for many, I hope the impulse is then you want to tell everybody about it. Carl Sagan used to say, when you're in love, you want to tell the world. And that's kind of how I feel about dinosaurs. But I think they really love that feeling. And it's something that they can build on then. And that becomes the first step that connects them to exploration and discovery and to careers in science and engineering and technology. And that can all start with a muddy kid with their dirty hands and a fossil that they found on their own.
So, and the last question, why summits like GLEX matter?
Well, we are not finished exploring the planet Earth. We're exploring some of our nearby planets and moons in the solar system, which is really all we have access to right now. But we probably know the surface of Mars better than we know the deep oceans. We certainly have not discovered even half the species that live on our planet, maybe even just a fraction of that. There are places in the world where a human has still not set a foot. So we have a lot of exploration to do on this planet, the one we call home. And I think what exploration can really do is to not only to amplify the wondrousness of this amazing planet that we live on, but also its isolation in space. We're on this tiny little moat hanging out in space with this wafer-thin atmosphere, the only thing that protects us from the hellacious conditions that are above us. And there is no plan B. There's no planet B. I mean, I'm sorry, Elon Musk, we're not going to build cities on Mars. I hope we explore, and I think we will, but Mars is terrible. Mars doesn't have usable water or really an atmosphere and no shield against cosmic rays. We can't even really colonize Antarctica, one of the continents on our planet that has things like air and water. So I don't think we can afford to, mess up this planet with the idea that, okay, we'll just go to the next one. That's not going to happen. We're stranded together on this tiny little lifeboat in space, and all we have is each other. And this is the place that we need to shepherd and care about and make sure that we have a place on this planet in the future. And that's why I think exploration is so important. And that's what I think GLEX can really do for the world, is to get people excited about exploration and science and discovery, and to amplify that message of sustainability that we all need to embrace.
Of course. Thank you so much, Ken. It was a pleasure to have you.
It's my pleasure, and I can't wait to be back in Portugal.
And thank you, Anne. See you here on the next road to GLEX.
See you soon. Thanks so much.
Expanding World in association with the Explorers Club are proud sponsors of this episode of Life's Tough, Explorers Are Tougher, and the Global Exploration Summit.
One of the things I find most interesting when two explorers get together is we sort of trade stories.
This is Life's Tough, but Explorers Are Tougher. I'm your host, Richard Weiss. I love the outdoors. I always have, and I always will.
Richard, you know how crazy this story is.
That is all true, that I had the great honor of shepherding James Doohan up into space.
I've heard stories that would make the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
I've been a pilot since I was 19, and one thing that you're trained as a pilot is to constantly evaluate risk, including yourself. Are you fit to fly? Are the conditions too dangerous for you in your current state with your current equipment?
I'm comfortable walking out on a limb that I think could very well break. And I always tell people the only way you're really going to know how to sail is if you tip the boat over, right?
Explorers are the type of people who walk in space, go to the bottom of the ocean, and stand on the highest summits.
And then I stopped dead in my tracks when I looked up and there's a big portrait of my mother just staring right at me.
At the American Museum of Natural History.
At the American Museum of Natural History.
Going to the North Pole in this small group of people and having Neil Armstrong and Ed Hillary as your partners in the trip was an incredible experience. And it makes you realize the people factor is really what it's all about.
You know, one of the biggest discoveries that we've made is just that there was a long-lasting lake of liquid water in our landing site, Gale Crater. And this water wasn't something that was very acidic, it was actually neutral.
Scratch the surface of any explorer and you'll find they're all storytellers.
I was a friend of Neil Armstrong because we never spoke about the moon, you know?
You know, when you think of New Jersey, you should think of dinosaurs. The world's first nearly complete dinosaur skeleton was found in New Jersey. The world's first tyrannosaur was found in New Jersey, a mile from the fossil park.
And so I learned a lot from her. I did teach her how to hunt and kept coming back and traveling throughout a lot of the Cheetah Range countries.
This show is about their tales.
Por agora é tudo. Acompanhe os episódios do Road to GLEX em www.glexsummit.com e até à próxima semana.